Welcome to Analysis. I'm John Rees. The killings on Bondi Beach have shocked the world. 16 people were shot dead in a terrorist attack on the celebration for the Jewish festival Hanukkah, the Festival of Light, on Sydney's landmark seafront. We have this report. Australians are still reeling from a tragic shooting of 16 people in a terrorist attack on a Hanukkah celebration. The festival was attended by 1,000 people on Sydney's iconic Bondi Beach when two heavily armed men started shooting at the crowd. The victims included a 10-year-old girl and an 87-year-old man. The gunmen were a father and son, originally from Syria. The son, Naveed Akram, had been interviewed by the Australian Domestic Security Services 6 years ago for suspected links to ISIS, though not to any wider terrorist cell. The father had 6 gun licences to his name. The fatalities would have been higher if 43-year-old Ahmed El Ahmed, a local fruit seller, had not fought one of the gunmen, sustaining gunshot wounds to his arm. No sooner had the news of the fatal attack become public than it was taken up by the Israeli government to attack Palestine demonstrations. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the Australian government's decision to recognise Palestine pours fuel on the anti-Semitic fire, emboldens those who menaced Australian Jews and encourages the Jew hatred now stalking your streets, he told Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, the Australian leader. He told him that he had replaced weakness with weakness and appeasement with more appeasement. He further attacked Albanese, saying, "Your government did nothing to stop the spread of anti-Semitism in Australia. You did nothing to curb the cancer cells that were growing inside your country. You took no action." The same theme has been echoed by supporters of Israel in the UK. Journalist Andrew Neil took the same line on X in remarks reported in the Daily Express. The BBC's flagship Today programme echoed Netanyahu's talking points. There is no proven link between advocacy for Palestine and ISIS-related terrorist activity, but there is a powerful link between the Western foreign policy and the emergence of ISIS. The 2003 invasion of Iraq and the dismantling of the Iraqi state are seen as crucial factors in creating the environment for ISIS to emerge. Since then, the proximate causes of terrorist attacks have often been seen in intelligence agency failures and lax gun controls, combining to give assailants the opportunity to wreak havoc on innocent communities. For instance, a review into the London attacks on July 7, 2005 established that while the domestic intelligence agency MI5 had the ringleader of the plot under surveillance as part of a wider operation, they failed to arrest him. And the killer in the Manchester Arena attack that killed 22 in 2017 had been flagged to the security services on 2 separate occasions in the months before the attack. So what will the Australian government do now? Will they clamp down on the Palestine movement? Will they introduce tighter gun laws? Will they accept that there were intelligence failures? To discuss all this, I'm joined from Australia by Shadi Al-Suleiman, who's an imam and president of the Australian National Imams Council. Welcome to the programme, Shadi. This is obviously a terrible event. Can you give us some sense of how the Muslim community are reacting to this now? Obviously, they're in the spotlight.
Well, thank you again to you and to the viewers. Obviously, it's a devastating time for us as Australians, regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of our faith. And obviously, it's a devastating time for the Jewish community in particular. And we've been repeating the very same phrase by saying that while the Jewish community is the targeted community by this attack, but it's an attack on all communities, including the Muslim community. And our hearts and thoughts go out to the victims and the affected communities and their loved ones. And inshallah, we hope that we'll get through it and we'll manage to continue progressing as a community and as a nation. Regardless of our backgrounds or regardless of the religion or the faiths that people adhere to.
And in terms of the likely response now from the government, there are already calls for and some responses to the calls for tighter gun controls, because we know that one of the assailants held a number of weapons legally, didn't they? They had a gun license, I think, for 6 weapons.
Yes, Australia has one of the strict and tight gun laws around the world, so it's not easy to get gun license and it's not easy to own a gun. If the government does want to go ahead, which is the most likelihood of the current situation, that the government wants to have tighter gun laws, this is something that the Muslim community and many Australians will welcome. As for the other concerns that's been raised with regards of protests and so forth, well, Australia is a democratic country and people have the rights to freedom of speech and they have the rights to express their opinions, political, religious, and others, as long as they comply with the law. And this is one of the concerns that we've already heard, conflating that with the Palestinian activism, which is something that will be discussed and will be raised in due course.
Yeah, let me just come to that in a moment, because I want to come to the remarks that Benjamin Netanyahu and others have been making about this. But just to stay focused for a moment on the sort of immediate events surrounding it, there's also been a statement that one of the attackers was interviewed by the domestic intelligence services in Australia, I think 6 years ago, for possible links with ISIS. And that interests me because in both the major terrorist attacks in Britain, in the Manchester Arena attack in 2017 and in the 7/7 attack, there were intelligence agency failures that they had knowledge of or indeed contact with the attackers, but hadn't reacted sufficiently. Do you think that this is a pattern that's being repeated in this case?
Well, this is a matter for the law enforcement agents for them to analyze and assess their capability and their success. Our concern is that any form of extremism that's not aligned with the mainstream understanding and teachings of Islam is a concern to us as a Muslim community. And extremism has different forms, and it's not only limited to one particular community and one particular faith. We've seen that across, unfortunately, the board, and we've seen that there are extreme elements in most communities. Our responsibility is to continue advocating and teaching the true understanding of Islam in accordance to the mainstream understanding of the Quran and Sunnah and what's been adhered by the vast majority of Muslims around the world. And that's our responsibility as the Australian National Imams Council, which is the peak body and leadership of the Muslim community. And we've been focusing on making sure that people have the correct and accurate understanding of Islam. As for ISIS, ISIS is a condemned terrorist organization that Muslims around the world had suffered from, and the Muslims around the world have been the very first victims of ISIS. So we've heard those reports that one of the perpetrators was linked to ISIS 2019. We are still waiting for more reports on this, and it is a huge concern. And the bigger concern is to conflate such acts with a religion. Terrorism doesn't have a religion. Terrorism doesn't have a faith. Terrorism doesn't have a color, doesn't have race. Terrorism doesn't adhere or does not belong to any particular community. And unfortunately, that's one of the biggest challenges that the Muslim community has been facing for a very long time, especially post September 11th, where it's been conflated a lot of times with terrorism, especially when the perpetrator could be from the Muslim community. And this is where we hold a huge responsibility in clearing that. And at the same time, political leaders, law enforcement agents have the responsibility for them not to conflate these acts of terrorism with any particular community, nor that an entire community should pay the price because of the actions of a few.
Well, given all that, do you find it depressing that Benjamin Netanyahu should immediately seek to instrumentalise the tragedy on Bondi Beach by attacking the Australian government for recognising the state of Palestine and attacking the Palestinian solidarity movement?
Well, Netanyahu is a war criminal, so he's not a credible source. The Australian government did recognize the state of Palestine, like many other Western governments, including the UK, France, Canada, and many others. And it's been a promise by the Australian government for a very long time. It wasn't a matter of if, it was about when. And this is the right time where the Palestinian people have the rights to their freedom and have the rights to their sovereignty. So claims by Netanyahu are non-credible, and these are times not to create more division, but it's time. These are times of unity and the time for us to come together. And we've been repeating this from yesterday and today. We met with Jewish leaders and other faith leaders, and we had reiterated and emphasized that it's not about which side you're on. There's only one side here, and that side of us being united as a community, as an Australian people, and we'll all stand against any form of terrorism, any form of violence against any community, whether those communities that we might agree on some political issues or disagree on political issues. What happened yesterday is an act of evil, an act of terror, and it's completely and unequivocally condemned. And that's a position, and that's the position of the vast majority of Australians, whether they come from a Muslim community or a non-Muslim community.
Do you fear that others may not take that view and that the result will be that there is some kind of clampdown on Palestine solidarity? I certainly know that in the newspapers, the right-wing newspapers over here, those calls are being made.
Yeah, we've heard some of those calls, and we don't agree with them. Uh, Advocating for the Palestinian cause is the right of all Australian people, all people around the world. It's not about advocating for the Palestinian cause, it's how you advocate for the Palestinian cause. And if it's within the lines and within the boundaries of the law, then people have the rights to advocate for Palestine. I'm a strong advocate of Palestine, and I attended protests and marches, including the big Harbour Bridge march that some reports say about 300,000 people attended that. It was a very peaceful march. People protested and stood against the killing of innocent people. So we totally reject conflating that with the recent attacks or the rise of anti-Semitism. Our position is very clear. We condemn and we are against any form of anti-Semitism that is in a form of hate, harassment, or violence against Jewish people because they are Jewish people. We stand by the Jewish people and we support the Jewish people against any form of anti-Semitism. And that's something that's not something that we are taught just by, or that's something that we have as Australians, but this is something that we've been taught through our religion, through our deen, through our Quran, through the practices and the traditions of beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the call, or right now, the recent calls of conflating the protests for Palestine, advocating for Palestine, is a reason of the rise of anti-Semitism, is something that we don't agree with, and we believe that this is something that will come up very soon, and we will put our position forward.
And what do you make of the one perhaps chink of light in this very, very dark story, that there was a heroic act by Ahmed El Ahmed, who we're seeing on the screen now, who managed to wrestle one of the gunmen, I think, to the ground, and certainly sustained, as we can see there, gunshot wounds to his arm and shoulder as a result. Quite remarkable, and even Netanyahu had to acknowledge that a Muslim man had played that heroic role in in those events.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a national hero. He's an Australian hero, and he's a Muslim hero. And this is what we are taught as Muslims, that we stand up for justice regardless who the perpetrator is, and supporting one another. And we are very proud of Ahmad. Uh, Out of transparency, I've never met him. Maybe he would have probably attended some of my congregations. But what his bravery and what he did last night is something that the Australian people will never forget. And also, it gives me that sense of pride that, Alhamdulillah, that there are Islamic and Muslim values that's embedded within us as Muslims, that we stand for justice and we stand against any perpetrator or any injustice, regardless who this person is. And he is hailed as a national hero in Australia, and it's something that we are very proud to see, that one person from within our own community stuck his neck out, and he was willing to sacrifice his life in protecting others, and that's exactly what our faith, our Quran teaches us.
I mean, it's quite remarkable, isn't it, that, I mean, we don't know what, or certainly I don't know, what Ahmed al-Ahmad's view on Palestine is, but it's possible, perhaps likely, that he's a supporter of the Palestinians, and the headline could be a Palestinian supporter confronts terrorists. That could be the headline, and it would be nearer the truth than some of the ones that we're beginning to see.
Yeah, we haven't seen the headline, but thinking about it, it does look like a nice headline to come out.
So, just give us a little bit of a sense of what you of the environment that you think is now developing. I can understand from what you're saying. I can feel from what you're saying that the response to Ahmed's actions is very positive. At the same time, we have these very negative arguments coming from Netanyahu. Where do you think the sort of balance of sentiment in Australia is liable to lie at the end of the day?
Well, this is the time for us as Australians to come together, regardless of our background and regardless of our faith. This is the time for us to stand by each other. The Jewish community had faced one of the most horrific tragedies last night, and this is the time that we need to stand in support and solidarity with the Jewish community as Australians, as Muslims, and this is exactly what we've been doing on the ground. We've been at the forefront of supporting them and reaching out to them, meeting with them, and we continue to reiterate that this is an attack on all Australians, on all humanity, and it is a time of unity and not a time of division. And we will defy those who seek to divide us. This is the time for us to show them that nothing will divide us. What brings us together is our humanity. What brings us together is our core values. And one of the primary Australian values is that we respect one another. It's one of the most successful multicultural, multi-faith countries in the world, and we want to continue maintaining this at all odds, at defying all odds, standing against those who seek to divide us and those who seek to embed hate in us. And the Muslim community in Australia is one of the most vibrant communities around the world. And we have good relationships with all communities, including the Jewish community. That doesn't mean we agree on everything, whether with the Jewish community or the Christian community or other communities, but we always share that mutual respect as Australians who are living in this beautiful and wonderful country that we live in.
And up to this point, how would you describe the situation with regard to the Palestinian issue in Australia? You've mentioned that iconic march across Sydney Harbour Bridge, very, very substantial mobilisation in favour of Palestine. We know from the remarks being made about this that the state of Palestine was recognised by the Australian government, as it was by the UK government. Up to this point, would you have said that the sort of Palestine solidarity movement was winning the argument over the conflict in Gaza?
Well, human beings in general and Australians don't want to see conflict anywhere around the world. They don't want to see the killing of innocent people. They don't want to see the famine on any nation. They don't want to see the bombardment and ongoing slaughter of any person. And the vast majority of Australians and people around the world, and I'm sure the same thing in Europe and Britain, in America and everywhere around the world, people want to see an end to this killing. People want to see an end to this genocide. People want to see an end to this massacre. And that's the very reason that over 300,000 people marched over the bridge, and thousands of people continue to march, not because they have any connections to Palestine or any connections to Islam. They're just human beings. They had enough from the ongoing onslaught and ongoing slaughter and ongoing genocide against the Palestinian people, in particular women and children and innocent people. So, and this is something that any human being will see, will support. Some people probably have a longer history with the advocacy on Palestine. Others are just ordinary human beings who just want to see the war to come to an end and the genocide to stop.
And do you think that sentiment was gaining ground? I mean, over the 2 years and more now that the attack on Gaza has been taking place, would you have said that that kind of experience that people have been through, not personally themselves, but in terms of being observers and political participants in the global events that have surrounded the attack on Gaza, do you think that they were more prominent, those solidarity voices, rather than less prominent at the end of that time?
Without a doubt, we can see a strong sentiment in support of the Palestinian cause, a strong sentiment of anti-war, anti-genocide, and anti-Netanyahu government overall. You could see that. We've seen that in the last 2 years, and people are coming to the realization that the Palestinian people have been oppressed and have been living under apartheid. Their lands have been taken away from them, and people are coming to the realization to see that the Palestinian people have the rights for their freedom and for their sovereignty. And as I mentioned, the vast majority of people who support the Palestinian cause don't support the Palestinian cause because they are Palestinians or because they are Arabs or because they are Muslims. They support the Palestinian cause because they're just human beings.
Okay, and we're coming to the end of the programme now, and I just want to give you an opportunity just to express how you feel that the Muslim community is now reacting to this, and perhaps for you to give a message to those people in the Jewish community who obviously have been the direct victims of this.
Well, our position has been very clear from the very beginning that our hearts, our thoughts, and prayers go out to the Jewish community and all those who have been affected and their families. It's a dark moment for the Australian community. That's the Jewish community, the Muslim community, and all Australians. And we are standing side by side in support and solidarity with all the affected communities. These are the times that we must be united, and this is an attack on all Australians, and we condemn violence and terrorism in all its forms, regardless who the perpetrator is. And this is a time of national unity, has been repeated by many leaders in the country. And we are, as a Muslim community, we are at the forefront of making sure that we maintain the social harmony, the mutual respect and dignity, the safety and security of all Australians. We stand side by all those who are being affected. We are concerned over some backlash towards the Muslim community, whether it's a physical backlash or an ideological backlash, and having that negative perception of Islam and Muslims that we've seen for the last 2 decades. Our responsibility as Muslims is to clear the misconceptions, to correct the misunderstanding. And this is something that we've been working very tirelessly on for many, many years. And we hope that these are times that rather than us going backwards, we'll only go forward. And rather than us being divided, we'll be united. And with the devastation and the horror that we've experienced as Australians, we can see a light at the end of the tunnel. And we can see that there is that sense of maintaining the social harmony and the unity of the country, and
Okay.
making sure that we will defy what people are trying, or those perpetrators had aimed to achieve, and that's to disunite us and divide us. We'll be a united nation, and we'll be a united community, and we'll progress and move forward and come out of this stronger.
Okay,
Inshallah.
thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. My thanks there to Shadi Al-Suleiman for joining me from Australia, and to you for watching. Do tune in to future episodes of Analysis, but for now, good evening.